Hello there, fellow Delugians, if that's a word, it is now. Great, it's been a while since I've done any tutorials. Been ridiculously busy the last 6 months with my music and also like drumming in other people's bands and things, which is starting to calm down a little bit now. So I'm back on the tutorials. I thought I'd do one today because today the version 3 firmware has been released for the Deluge. Few killer new features on it. Obviously, the big one that everyone's talking about is the looper. The two for me actually that I've kind of got really excited about are the fact that we can name our tracks and songs and stuff from here. There's now a QWERTY keyboard built in, and we can also use the Deluge as a USB host. And they're the couple of things I'm just going to focus on in this video for now, and I'll do various other ones on my workflow and how I use it in future videos. First of all, you might think, hang on, it looks a bit different from the last video. Yeah, I've bought this overlay. Okay, so this is just like a magnetic overlay that comes, you can buy them from Synthstrom, which is great because it stays on because it's magnetic. And that's got all the shortcuts for version 3.0 on it. And it's also got the keyboard layout on it for the QWERTY keyboard for naming your tracks. I kind of tried to do it by guessing without the overlay, and it's impossible. I think if you buy a new one, not I think, but you do. If you buy a new one now, obviously you get that built in on your new top, or you can buy a whole new top thing as well. With the naming of the tracks as well, you can also rename them just by putting them in your computer, which is actually what I did when I first got the new firmware. I'd got a list in a notebook of like track 1, track 2, track 3 and the song titles, and I basically just for speed just put the SD card in my computer and just renamed them all in there, and it reads it fine on here. So hopefully you can see, if I just go into load, I've still got some tracks that are numbered, but as we go through all these you can see we've now got the names of the tracks, which makes life so much easier, which is fantastic. Just for like organising, particularly playing live, because I used to have a set with like track 1 is this, track 2 is that, and so on, which is always a pain. So to name a track, it's dead easy. Just press on save. It'll come up with, if it's a track you're already working on, it'll come up with like number 2 at the end of it. So this is where it used to be like version A, B, C, D before. So if you were saving track 1 and then you clicked save, it would automatically go to 1A. So you can save different versions of it. So you can have different versions of it, just like version 2, version 3, version 4, or whatever. If you want to just overwrite it, then you would just kind of get rid of that and go back to what it was before. If to give you an example of a new, so we've had a new song. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, that was right. New song. We go to save. It's going to come up with a number first of all. So the last song I did was 241, so this is 242. So all you do is just start typing whatever name you want to give it, and then press save again, and it's done. I've now got a randomly saved song in there. If you've already got a song, like I say, and you give it the same name, it will ask you if you want to overwrite it. So you've got that sort of protection thing there. So that's the naming of songs and stuff, which is kind of a simple feature, but a really, really useful feature. The other one is USB hosting, which is, for me, is great because I've got quite a few like MIDI controllers like this that only have USB connections. Obviously, if it's got a standard 5-pin MIDI connection, brilliant. You know, I've been able to use those, but then obviously they usually need separate power and so on. One thing you got to remember for the MIDI hosting on the Deluge is you need to get like a little adapter thing or a cable like this. So I'm just going to demonstrate what you've been doing today with the Nano control. So this is a whatever USB connection that is, micro, MIDI, mini or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, that's my standard kind of cable like that. Just plug that back in. So I've had this thing, I bought this ages ago and I don't know why I bought it, but it's just an adapter that takes it from that USB connection to these. This was a few quid I think off eBay or Amazon. Synthstrom is selling them on their website as well, but they're fairly straightforward to get. Or you can just buy a cable that's got that connection on one end and this on the other, whichever way you want it. But this is quite useful because it means you can kind of use it with various different cables. To get the USB hosting, you do need to be powered from the mains. Okay, so I've got mine plugged in. I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see it there, but I'm plugged into the mains there. So you can't run it off USB because obviously the USB socket is now being used for the MIDI host, and there's not enough power in it, I don't think, just to run it off battery. I think it's got a limited amount of power for the USB host for powering up your controller. So you may, if you've got, if it's not working, you may need to power that separately. If that is an option, obviously something like the Nano Control, there's no option to power it separately because it's only got that one USB connection. But let's plug it in. So all I'm doing is sticking this in the normal USB connection at the back of the Deluge, which I can't find. And what you got to remember is you need it turned off before you plug in your device. If you turn it on, now you can see this has powered this up. Lights come on here, and we're good to go. So I've had this Nano Control for a while, and I've not used it that much. And what I thought I would do with this is kind of have it as a bit of a controller for the envelopes and so on for the built-in synth on this. And let me just going to dim the lights a bit. There we go. Otherwise it will glare you. Because I've got these sliders that I'm going to use for the envelope, and I'll just show you how I map those. There's nothing new in the mapping. It's the same as it was before, but I just thought I'd go over how I sort of use it. The other thing I've started to do now is I've made a template. So if I just go to load, I've got this track here called template. Because what I normally do, my Deluge normally has some audio routed into it. Normally it's the TB03 or any of the other synths I've got. And what I was finding is every time I did that, I had to set up a new synth track, set the oscillator to the left, right, in, and so on. So all I've done is I've just saved this track now. You can see that's now an audio track. So I just set it up how I would normally set it up to route the audio in, save it as template. So whenever I'm starting a new track, I will just load the template in, and I'm going to put loads of other things in, loads of other synth templates and things in there, and I'll probably show you that in a different video. And then when it comes to save, I just save it under a different name. So it's just a bit of a time-saving thing, but I might do a separate video on templates and so on at some future date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map the some of the synth controls to the Nano Control. So what I'm going to do is, because I mean the synth, I don't probably use the internal synth as much as I should because it's quite fiddly. I know you've got your controls up here, but there's a little bit of like shortcuts and menu delving and stuff to get into a lot of the things, and I like hands-on control for particularly for envelopes and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map the first 4 sliders here to envelope 1, which is going to be the amp envelope, and then I'm going to map these 4 sliders to envelope 2, which I'm going to kind of plug into the filter. So this will be my filter envelope. So easy enough to do. So we've got attack, decay, sustain, release down here. So all we're going to do is we're going to highlight that. We're going to press learn, press on that, and then just slide this slider, and you'll see up here it will say learn. Okay, so that is now mapped, so you can see that chaining as I slide up on here. That is now my attack. Do the same thing for decay, same thing for sustain, and same thing for release. Okay, let's come out of that. So if we now just go into the synth, let's just open the filter right up. Okay, so it's going to get all those there. So at the moment we're not hearing anything because I've got nothing on my envelope. So if we just bring the sustain up, so then that's mapped to that. We've got a release there. Attack and decay and so on. It just makes it a little bit quicker to get a sound. If you're auditioning a sound and playing on here, I find now with this new USB hosting function, it's dead easy just to turn it into a much more usable synth, which I think is great. So we can do the same thing. Let's map these to the filter envelope. So we've got to do a little bit on here first. So we're going to obviously map it to the frequency. So we're going to highlight frequency. This is already mapped, I think. And then we've got to press on there, which is envelope 2, and that will kind of plug envelope 2 into the frequency of the filter. So we're going to now map envelope 2. So we're now going to map envelope 2, which is down here, to these 4. So while we're on that, we're going to pick the attack. Same principle as before, learn that, decay, learn that, sustain, learn that, and release. Okay. So see what we've got now. So I found, let's just bring the resonance up because it's easier to hear the filter with that. So hopefully you can kind of hear that that's now working. But obviously we've got an amount as well. If we go to envelope 2 on here, obviously we've got an amount of how much of the envelope we send to the filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map that button to this one here, because that's kind of like the start of my filter envelope section. So I'm going to map that dial, so I've got control of the filter envelope amount on this here. So I've already got that selected, so we're going to press learn, hold that, and we're going to turn that. So we've now got control of the amount of the filter envelope. So that means I can turn that off if I want completely, or we can, you know, have however many amounts I want. Obviously we can go for, you can map obviously anything that you want. So I'm kind of using all this as my control. What I probably would do is map the frequency of the filter, I don't know, say to this dial here, so let's just do that. And we're going to map the resonance to the second one. So and so on, okay? Wow. Okay, so it just kind of makes it a little bit more like a hands-on synth. I like sliders for envelopes because I can kind of see the position of them. So obviously any of these we can map accordingly, which does make life a lot easier. You can then go in and start to map LFOs and whatever to whatever other dials you've got. Then it's really just a case of making sure you save that. So if I show you what happens now with the save with the new naming function, go save. So you can see it's now, if I scroll across, it's, oh no, nope, scroll across. You can see I'm still learning. Hold on, let's just go back. If I go to save, it will say template 2. Okay, so it comes up with the original name and 2. I want to overwrite that because I want to save this as a template. So all I would do is, here is our like kind of back delete button. I would just take it back to there. Press save. It now asks me if I want to overwrite, so I click save again, and that's done, and that is then now saved. Okay, so it does have its limitations that that mapping would only be relevant to this synth. That's the one I've just mapped, so you can see as I'm turning the dials, you can see stuff moving up here. If we put another instance of the synth in and do the same thing, we can see that's not going there. So if you want more than one instance of that synth, you would obviously just need to just map it all again, but it's probably not many. It's not a massive job to do that. If you think, well, in any track I might say I might use this, I don't know, the synth 4 or 5 times or whatever, just on your template, just spend a bit of time mapping out synth 1, synth 2, synth 3, synth 4, and then you've got it all done. So it's just once you've got them all set up on your templates, then you're good to go. And obviously you can do the same thing if you want like MIDI control or CV control or whatever. Just spend a bit of time just setting up your template, and then it's done. And then every time you switch on, load up your template, you've got your song to go, save it under a different name, and you're all good. So that's just a quick overview on a couple of the new features. I will endeavour to go through a lot of the other features over coming weeks in different videos, as much as anything for me to learn them as well. Sort of as an updated manual kind of thing, because I do occasionally forget how to use stuff and have to watch my own tutorials to remember how to do stuff, which is quite interesting. But anyway, there we go. So usual things, if you like it, please give us a like, hit subscribe if you want to keep in touch with more content coming in the future, which should be a little bit more regular. It's been a little bit hit and miss this year. And if you want to check my music out, then please do so on Spotify, iTunes, usual places. Be much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.